Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ask Don't Tell, where we always talk about how the top salespeople, leaders, entrepreneurs, whatever you are in business, you care about the people that you're working with. You live in an ask, don't tell world, and that is what makes you more successful. And today, we're going to talk a lot about leadership today. This is going to be a great show. I've got a awesome guest today. His name is Jonathan Raymond, and you might have heard him before. He's the author of Good Authority, How to Become the Leader, and he'll have to fix me. How to become the leader your team is waiting for. But also, he's got a really cool project that I want to get into today. So, Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Oscar. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for being here. So, besides being an author, and we'll talk about that in a second, you are the CEO and founder of something called Ren. Now, I looked this up. I tried to figure it out. I'm a smart guy, but I think that you need to kind of tell us a little bit what it is because it's AI based. And so there's a lot of people right now. There's a lot of buzz on AI, on leadership and sales, how to run it your business. So this is going to be a great show on that. Why don't you get us started on what Ren is?
Sure. So I got into this field about 10 years ago. I wrote the book called Good Authority, and we started doing what people in my position typically do: executive coaching programs, manager training, consulting projects, trying to help organizations shift their culture. And in particular, around the people leadership part of it. It's the most difficult part to get right. So we did that. We had a pretty good run. But when I saw the AI wave crashing on the shore in 2023, I said, oh shit, I better get out of the way of that thing, or at least figure out how I'm going to ride it. And so we decided to start training an AI on our methodology and our curriculum, the same methods and tools and processes that we've been teaching managers for a decade. We said, well, let's train the AI to do that so that it can be sitting next to the manager or the leader when they need it 24/7, not limited by the number of coaching hours in a day or putting consultants on a plane. So that was the genesis of the idea. And we've been at it for about 18 months, and we could talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of it so far. But it's essentially a workplace co-pilot that sits next to managers and employees to help them have the conversations that they usually either get wrong or skip. And that's what we've built, and that's what we're rolling out with customers right now.
All right. Okay. So that's a great explanation. Now, as you're taking me through that, and there's probably a lot of people that have never heard of, Jonathan Raymond, the Good Authority. They've heard of. So you're talking about a solution that you've created that obviously is in this, this AI, whatever. Some people call it a hype. Some people call it reality. Some people call it is, whatever it may be.
Could be a simulation. We might all be in a simulation, Oscar.
But behind that, there is the teachings from your original, your original book or the original coaching and leadership that you were doing. So let's start there, and then let's go, further into what exactly or how Ren is going to help people. So why don't you get me started first with, all right, so there's a lot of different solutions out there, right? There's a lot of different programs out there. So let's start me out with why the good authority or the original leadership and coaching that you were doing.
Yeah.
Why is that different than some of the other stuff out there? How is it different?
Sure. So the quick backstory. So late 90s, I was a lawyer, left the practice of law and went on a journey, right? And I went headlong into meditation, studied to become a mindfulness meditation teacher, yoga teacher, studied and got trained in somatic psychotherapy. And I went off the deep end in every possible way, personal growth and spiritual development. And for about 15 years was in that world. At the same time, I was trying to figure out, what am I going to do for money? How am I going to make a living? Because being a yoga teacher, which is sometimes interesting, is not a good way to make a living. And I used my legal career to be doing business development in various, fields in software, renewable energy, and those kinds of things. But my worlds were very separate. I felt like I had, nights and weekends, essentially. I was learning these esoteric, interesting, depth psychology, cutting edge spirituality concepts, old ideas, new ideas, trying to figure out how to integrate those into my personal life. And then during my day, I'm trying to figure out how to be a good business person, how to be a good leader, how to be a good CEO. And I felt split between those two things. And so the moment that changed for me was in a leadership crisis that I was in the early 2010s. Everything was going wrong. And I really had to look in the mirror as a leader and say, what am I missing? And the realization that I had, which led to the book, was I'm treating these two things as two separate paths. How do I work on myself as a human, as a man, as a father, as a husband, one side of my reality, and how do I become a better leader with the other side of my reality? What if that's not two things? What if that's one thing? And so the core concept of good authority is personal and professional growth are one thing, not two. And the primary obstacle for us as leaders, which will resonate with with the title of this podcast, is that mostly we perceive our role as an authority as the person who fixes and solves problems. But that is not what we're supposed to be doing as leaders. We are supposed to be creating the space for other people to figure out and solve problems, to innovate, to take risks, and to do things so that we are not the bottleneck on our teams or in our organizations. So that's what good authority is all about. And the central concept is what we call more Yoda, less superhero. Most leaders, way too involved. They need to, some leaders are not involved enough. That does happen. But most leaders, they care a lot. They want the result to be good. They feel responsible. And they're way too involved in the moment-to-moment machinations of the team. And they need to be much more focused on creating the conditions for other people to succeed, to embody curiosity, to ask the right questions. And so that's what the book is all about.
Okay. So I'm assuming that, okay, so you wrote the book, and then obviously from there you developed probably a corporate training company or
Yes.
executive coaching, or so as you
Too many
went
coaching
that
sessions
route.
to count.
Okay. How many? As you went that route, are you teaching basically the principles of the book, or did the book, so for example, I read the book, it's going to be, wow, this is good stuff. But then from that you started developing, an A, B, C, D, E, F kind of way that isn't in the book, is kind of what I'm getting at.
So I guess to my credit, a lot of it is in the book. So people could
Okay.
you could do a lot. It's very practical. It has a lot of scripts. It has a lot of practical, in particular around a tool we call the accountability dial. Maybe we'll get into it. But mostly my role is, so I had a team of trainers and coaches that would go out and train the concepts. Mostly the role that I would play is I would sit with the CEO or the president of the division and be working with them more at a change management, at what's the culture that we're trying to create? How do we get accountability right here in this organization? What are we doing today that's getting in the way of people stretching outside of their comfort zone, playing it safe, all of those kinds of things? So my role, I don't tend to operate as a coach in the traditional sense. I have very strong opinions, so I don't like sitting there for an hour with someone being like, tell me more about that. I'm like, no. You need to do this. And so I tend to be I'm very much challenging my clients. Some people love that. The people who love me love that. But I'm very impatient. I don't I don't want to have the same conversation 7 times about the person that on your team who you don't think is good at their job. I want to hold them accountable, give them clear expectations, give them the coaching they need, give them the opportunity to step up. And if they can't or won't, let's move them out, because that's fair to everybody.
All right, so let me dig a little bit deeper into this, because whether it's the book or whether it was the the old school way of, hey, I'm going in and training, or whether it's Ren, there's a foundation there, right?
Yes.
And so you mentioned a little bit about the dials, and I read a little bit about that. So for example, closing intelligence, the foundation is a 5-step process. I call it intent statement, then discovery, and then
I love it already.
I'm taking you through a 5-step process in the sales process. So in your process, is it different skills or techniques, or is there a foundation that kind of everything else is built upon from?
Yeah. So the foundational principle is that you don't know who somebody is until you challenge them, right? when they're an employee, because most people have been poorly managed or not managed at all. So when I look at an individual, whether that's a first-time employee or an executive 25 years who's being evaluated, and someone gives me their opinion of like, oh, this person is this way, I say, okay, that's your opinion. Let's see. Has anybody given them that feedback? No. Has anybody talked with them about the world that they're living in and how they need to operate differently? No. So you have no idea who this person is or what they're capable of. So the foundation is everybody gets the opportunity to show you who they are that isn't who they're showing up as today. And you keep a really tight cycle to get as close to them as quickly as you can through this 5-step process. Here's how you're showing up. Did you even know that that's, oh, I had no idea. Most people have no idea that that's how they're showing up and how they're having a negative impact on their team, on their organization, on themselves, on their family. Most people are oblivious until they get feedback and some external source says, hey, did you know that this is what's happening? Or would you be at least consider that this is what's happening? So the process is, how do we engage with that person in a crisp way that is honest but is kind, and help them through that moment so that they can show up as a better version of themselves. That's the process.
And again, and very briefly, because I want to make sure we get to the rest of what we want to get. So, but there's basically 5 steps to that. Like the foundation is a 5-step process. You call them dials. Can you run us through those like really quick?
Sure. Yeah. So the accountability dial has 5 stages: the mention, the invitation, the conversation, the boundary, and the limit. So the mention is just that. Hey, I noticed something. I'm not sure if you're aware of it. Wanted to put it on your radar. It's like that kind of hallway moment or virtual moment where you're trying to raise somebody's awareness to something that is or might be a problem. First stage. Second stage, the invitation is, hey, there's a pattern emerging. It wasn't just a one-off thing. That's actually happened 3 or 4 times. Or there's 3 or 4 different things that look connected, right? Anybody who has kids, like, they don't necessarily do the same stupid thing over and over again. They do 3 or 4 things that are stupid, and you're trying to help them see the pattern that's emerging in their life. Go ahead.
No. Keep going. I'm just laughing.
Okay. So that's the invitation. Hey, I don't know if you noticed in the call yesterday, this happened, and then there was this proposal, and then when we were walking together, you said this. Can you see how those things might be taken together as a pattern? And the person, light bulb moment, oh, I never really thought about that before. Thank you for giving me that structure to think about myself a little differently. So that's the invitation. Most managers never get to that stage. We're still at only stage 2. We don't talk about the thing at the beginning. We don't say, hey, did you notice you're doing this? So we missed stage 1. We don't get to stage 2, which is, hey, there's a pattern of activity that if you actually, if I put it on your, hey, did you know that you're doing these 3 things that are actually taking you away from the promotion that you wanted? Holy shit, thank you so much for telling me. I know it sounds silly, but the vast majority of people never get that information from their manager or from their colleagues. So they're flying blind. That's phase 2 of the dial. The third stage of the dial is what we call the conversation. When you go to somebody, anybody in your life, a friend, your employee, your parents, and you say to them, hey, did you know that you did this? They will typically respond in one way. Oops, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. Okay, that's nice. Doesn't change the fact that you had an impact. What was the impact? So saying you're sorry, saying oops, that's good, that's necessary, but insufficient to change behavior. We have to shift people's attention from what was their intent, which is almost always positive, to their impact, which is often not positive. To put it on their radar. Hey, okay, I know you didn't intend to create more work for the team, but can you see how doing it in this way had that impact? Oh, yeah, I can see that. Okay, great. So now I've got more information to take ownership, to be accountable. Now I'm in stage 3.
Let me stop you there before you go to the next 2 phases, because I don't want to lose this thought. So a lot of the people that listen to this show either are leaders, they're either business owners, or they're salespeople, right? And salespeople a lot of times become leaders, and business owners a lot of times are best salespeople, and they're all leaders in some way or the other. So as you're saying that, I'm thinking, if you're not careful, and here's where I need to be clear, and I'm sure you take your course through this, but if you're not careful, I would think that this applied incorrectly would be like me telling you this is what you did and kind of taking you through the 5-step process, but kind of saying, okay, this is what you did. Because you're really teaching people how to have difficult conversations is really what you're trying to, you're like,
Yes.
all leaders have to know how to have difficult conversations, and most leaders will avoid those difficult conversations, or
Yes.
they'll go too long before they actually have the conversation and it's too late, or a
Right.
lot of money's been lost, or you've just let them coast.
Yeah.
So when they finally have these difficult conversations, either two things I would think happen as you're saying this. So this is where I need you to help me. Either I'm just assuming what I'm saying, hey, I know this, I know that the impact has been this, I've noticed that you've done this. Do you approach it that way? Or is it more of, and I believe, an ask, don't tell, always doing discovery, asking questions first. Is it more like,
Yes.
hey, I've noticed that you've been late every day. Can you tell me a little bit more about why that's happening? So how do
Yes.
you build in good questions? And I think this will really apply to our show. How do you build in good questions so that the other side sees it as, okay, he didn't just come to me and say, why are you doing this? It came to me with first questions to uncover the reality. And then since I have articulated the reality, like me, the guy in trouble, now you can come back to me and say, well, I'm not the one saying this. It's coming out of your mouth. So this is why you're
Exactly.
addressing. So how,
Yeah.
how do you mold that
Absolutely.
in there?
So it's a perfect parallel. The whole idea is this is a discovery process based in the belief that you can't get anybody else to change, right? All you can do is give them the information and they will decide whether or not they're going to change or not. Now, there's an art to this, right? So a good question in this world, a lot of times when, if a manager approaches you, and you have to remember, the reason why I called the book Good Authority is the moment there's someone who has power over my paycheck of whether or not I'm going to make my mortgage payment or be able to take my family on holiday, all of a sudden I have a different set of ears on, right? So it's very, very difficult to hear information coming from someone who has that power, to hear it objectively and just hear the message, right? So that's why it's so important to ask it as much as you can in the form of questions. But it doesn't mean you withhold entirely your perspective, right? So for example, I might say something like, Oscar, I noticed, let's use your example. Like, hey, I noticed you've been coming in late the last couple of days. I could make up a story about why that is, but I don't know. Can you tell me about like what's been happening or why that might be happening? So I'm not trying to hide, like, I'm not saying like, hey, I have no opinion about this or I don't have any reaction. I'm not trying to be like a blank slate, cold interrogator. I'm a human being. We're in a relationship together, you and me. I'm the manager, you're the employee, or whatever the case may be. But I'm interested in your perspective first, more than my own, because I can make up one, but that's not actually going to be helpful here. What's going to be helpful is, what do you make of what's happening? Do you see this pattern emerging? What do you think the impact might be? So we're at the third stage of the accountability dial, and I'm asking you, I want managers, I'm training them, it doesn't matter, CEO, any level, to ask the question of like, okay, so now we've agreed that, let's say, our response time on customer tickets is a day over our norm. We can agree on the sort of the general reality of what's happening. We're in the same reality. Okay, cool. Have you ever thought about what impact that might be having on the team? Huh.
Right.
Never thought about that before. Have you ever thought about what impact that might be having on your reputation with your other peers who are VPs and what they might be thinking? Huh. Never thought about that either, right? So now you're doing what you're describing, which is get me to author my own understanding of like, oh, I'm doing something. This person's not trying to shame me, judge me, or they're just pointing out, they're sharing observations, they're doing discovery, they're trying to evoke an understanding that I have of my situation. Because if it's only when that happens that I'm going to be able to take ownership of the change. If I don't author it, I might do it, but I'm going to do it to please you, and it's not going to stick. It's only going to stick if I do it for my own reasons.
How do you get this is phenomenal information, because ultimately when a leader is doing this, they're ultimately trying to get the other end to take a certain action, which is ultimately sales at the end of the day, right? And whether you're actually selling a product or where you're being a good leader,
100%.
it all comes back down to asking the right questions. And the better questions that you ask and the better information you get, the better decision you can help them make and the better the action. So this is just so important when people say, well, that guy's a salesperson. No, actually, he's a great leader because he understands the principles of asking great questions, right?
Yeah.
So how do you get people that are leaders or put in leadership positions that don't really understand or don't really have the skill or have never kind of been in that sales world or in that where they're more of asking questions rather they're being authoritative? How do you get them to make the shift from, because I would think that's like the hardest thing for you to teach. It's like, because you can teach them the skill, you can teach them the five layers, but if they don't know how to ask good questions and they go in there instead with an authoritarian perspective of this is what you did, this is how you're good, this is the impact.
Yeah.
Would you agree, Jonathan, that the result simply is not the same?
Correct. So the second part of my answer is that's why we created Ren, which I know we're going to talk about, because it's very, very difficult for leaders because they're moving so quickly. They're so used to operating in an authoritative command and control way. They don't know how to say it in the way that we're describing. So I have had clients, super smart people. They would tell you, I love the accountability dial. I've trained 1,000 of my employees on it. But if you actually were a fly on the wall trying to observe them, trying to implement that in the moment, they really struggle.
They go, okay.
Because,
yeah. So let's go there. Just tell me what is the fourth and the fifth dial, and then we'll go to Ren because I think that's the biggest challenge. I mean,
it is.
Because at the end of the day, it's like me. I train salespeople to ask better questions, but I can't speak for them, right? So ultimately, they have to learn that skill, and what you've created in a way is an AI that's going to help them when they're in it. So I want to get into that. I think that's going to be awesome. But very quickly, what's the fourth and fifth dial?
So the fourth stage is what we call the boundary, right? So it's like I've been working with an employee. It doesn't always happen in a linear way. Every situation is different, but we're at the point where we both agreed that there's a behavior or some pattern or something that needs to change. And the question becomes, well, how much longer can that behavior go on? How long am I going to, we're talking about it in a negative way, but the question that I always ask leaders is I say, when I'm working with let's say I've got 500 managers in a workshop, I say, somebody raise their hand, tell me something that somebody on your team is doing that's driving you crazy. And someone raises their hand and says, oh, I have this one person, he never takes anybody else's ideas and whatever. I said, okay, great. This is what's going to happen. You're going to let that person stay in exactly this way without changing on your team for the next 10 years. How does that sound? That sounds terrible, Jonathan. I don't want that. Okay, great. How about the next 5 years? No, that still sounds terrible. Agreed. How about the next 1 year? No, that still sounds too bad. How about the next 90 days? And they go, it's right. It's every single time I ask that question, I get the same exact answer. Everybody says some version of, well, if I saw meaningful change of that behavior in the next couple of months, I could live with it and I could live with it. I could live with that. Okay, great. There's your boundary. The only problem is that person doesn't know that that's your boundary. So that's the fourth stage of the accountability. I was getting on the same page. What needs to change by when and what would it look like if changed? What would we hear you saying or not saying, doing or not doing? What would we feel in relationship to you? And so there's that boundary conversation, not a performance review. It's not a PIP. It's not a write-up. That's all bullshit. That doesn't work. That's HR compliance junk that needs to be thrown on the trash heap of history. These are human conversations about accountability. So that's the boundary conversation is like, hey, I'm here to help you, but I can't do this for you. When is this going to change? What is it going to look like? Can we shake on it? Cool. Good. That's stage 4. Fifth stage, because even if I do that, there are situations that people can't or won't make the change, and they're not going to make it to the level that you need on the team, and there's going to have to be some change. So the limit, people say like, oh, the limit, that means firing them. No, the limit doesn't mean firing them. The limit means I'm at the limit of my ability to coach you. I've given you everything I've got. We've had a million conversations about this. We've gone mention, invitation, conversation, boundary. You've even expressed a desire to change this, but you haven't been able to. I don't know what else to do at this point. I'm putting the ball in your court one last time, right? And sometimes, right, if anybody who's listening to this show, I guarantee that the biggest changes you've made in your life came because you had no choice but to change. No choice. Your wife or your husband or your boss or someone in your life said, I will not continue with you if you continue to operate in this way. Right? They didn't say, I hate you. They didn't, if they were loving, they didn't say, look, I love you. But, and the classic example is with someone who's an alcoholic or whatever, right? Like, I won't continue to be in this relationship with you while you continue to do this thing. That's love, right? So the limit is tough love. Is saying, hey, I can help you, but only up to a point. You got to do this. And I'm here. And if you do it, great. And if you don't do it, well, I can't keep coming back here over and over again. I've got other people to worry about. I'm not just a manager of one person. I got a team of 50 or a division of 5,000, whatever it is. So I have my limits as well. And so it's just being clear and transparent about that.
That's really good stuff. Our listeners, I think can take home some really good stuff from that, as far as whether they've been on the receiving end on that.
Sure.
Whether even if they just took a tidbit, for example, of everything you just said, because ultimately, if I had to repackage it, I'd say, just having those difficult conversations, and if anything that, they can take from that is difficult conversations, or A, having the conversation, B, asking, the right questions to uncover what it is. But I really like and this is something people can take home today, because ultimately they can go and read the book and they can dig deep. But something they can just take home today is, hey, what are we going to do by when, right? Like, what is the limit that you're willing to do? And ultimately, what is the desired outcome? Like, maybe there's A outcome, there's B outcome, but you have to have a by when and a desired outcome. And ultimately, you said it, there's going to be people that don't want to do, that can't do, and have been giving the chance to do.
Yeah.
And they just refuse to do. So,
and you're, this show, a lot of your folks who are salespeople, right? I'm a salesperson too in my world. What's one of the most powerful things that you can say as a salesperson is, hey, I don't think this is the right product for you.
Right.
Right. To be confident enough that you say, like, hey, I don't think this is the right fit. Same principle. That's what a limit is. You say, like, hey, I think this might not be the right role for you. Yep. Oh, that is often the wake up call. Right? But if you don't have the courage as a salesperson to say that, you're going to suck at sales. If you don't have the courage as a manager to say that, you're going to suck at being a manager.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. All right. So take us a little bit into Ren. So how this is really good stuff. And so, I see it with sales training or team training or corporate training, whatever. And you've done it as well as I've done. And you see it, like, you've got the theory, you've got the training, you've got the teaching, and then as soon as you leave, they go into the real world.
Yep.
And you'll come back for the next session and the next training, and they're not doing any of the things that they know that they're supposed to do that they've been taught. So I'm thinking that this is what Ren is. So why don't you tell us a little bit how Ren helps them actually do this on a day-to-day?
Yeah. So, if we draw a parallel to like the things that we're used to doing, right? It's like my dishwasher breaks, right? If I go to Google and I say, how do you fix a dishwasher? Not that useful, right? Like, what I want to know is, how do I fix this dishwasher that's in my kitchen, that model, this problem based on these symptoms, right? We are now used to being served up education at such a granular level that's personalized to my situation, the context within which I am operating. So the classroom theory is not nearly enough, right? It doesn't cross the relevance threshold. In order for me to use it, I have to be able to say, okay, I'm right now, it's in this moment. I'm in a meeting with someone. They're doing that thing right now, Oscar. What do I do? So the idea with AI is putting the coach with the person in the moment, saying, here's the question you need to ask. Stop talking, right? Like, that's the goal. Now, we're not doing all of that yet, but it's like, if you think about coaching in the traditional sense, and you know this in sales, right? Is if you think of, let's say, tennis, like Rafael Nadal, right? Like, his coach doesn't say, hey, Rafael, how did the match go? Right? He watched the match. Right? He watches him play and he says, oh, when you're on your backhand, your elbow is flaring out. And that's why you keep hitting it into the net or whatever thing, right? Like, so the idea of coaching without actually watching somebody do the thing you're trying to help is insane. but that's what we've decided is normal, right? So with sales, it's great because you can look at what's called recording and say like, hey, at 12 minutes in, notice how the energy in the conversation went down. That was when you should have asked the question instead of jumping over into pricing, trying to close that, whatever the thing is, right? Same principle, right? Like the AI needs to be able to be there in the moment with you to help you prepare for the conversation. What's the context? Who are you interacting with? What's your leadership style? What are you going to tend to do? Oh, you're going to tend to talk too much, or you're going to tend to focus too much on the projects. Or I know, Jonathan, that what you're worried about right now is the Q4 budget. And so that's what's on your mind. But don't let that crowd it, because that person needs something else in this moment, right? And so being able to provide what's like literally the words, right? So if I go to Ren and I say, Joe on my team is doing, Joe does crappy work. He's a lousy employee. I think I want to fire him, and blah, blah, blah. Ren's going to say, okay, wow, that's intense. Tell me more about what's going on, right? It's not going to say, hey, yeah, good idea. You should go fire Joe. It's not trying to create a lawsuit for you, right? It's going to say, hey, tell me more about it. Well, when he does this, every time he does this, he does it wrong. Okay, has anyone explained to Joe that he? Well, I don't. Well, he should just know it. Well, why should he just know it, right? Like, so there's a level of intimacy that is required. That a CEO knows this. If you've had a CEO coach, an executive coach, there's a level of intimacy relative to the problems that you're trying to solve that you get really good advice. Nobody else gets that, right? Nobody else in the organization gets advice that's that specific. Here's exactly what to do in this situation.
Ultimately, as a coaching company, because ultimately in a way you're a coaching.
Sure, 100%.
You're a coaching company. So as a coaching company, and I don't know if some people don't like to be called the coaching company. Some people will say, oh no, I'm corporate consulting or whatever. But ultimately you're coaching people, use the example of Rafael Nadal. But you're coaching people. And in the coaching world, so I mean, not to get into it, but I know a lot about the business coaching world and the coaching world. In that world, you have good coaches, okay coaches, bad coaches, coaches that are great at leadership, coaches that are great at sales, coaches that are great at marketing, coaches that, for example, you, Jonathan, are the one that created the book. You might be the best coach, but it might be difficult for you to clone yourself to 20 other great Jonathans. So kind of what I'm hearing here is Ren is the, and I'm not saying the attempt, like what it's done is it says, you don't have to depend on a specific coach, which is a big challenge. It's a huge liability, right, for coaching companies. You don't have to suspend a specific coach, or even if the coach is available, or if they understand your business or your industry. What we've done is basically packaged all this knowledge into AI, where obviously the AI learns, and now it learns about your business, your industry, your team, and can coach you on demand, building that kind of AI relationship on the spot. Did I get that right? Is that kind of what you?
Yes. So
okay.
Well, I'll see you and I'll raise you one. Right. So I have cloned myself.
Okay.
Ren is a clone of me, my experience, the ideas in the book, and all of our client work. So there's a specific philosophy. And right now, you can go sign up for Ren and get a coaching call with Ren using your voice, like a voice call. It's really good. We've been working on it for 18 months. And you can have a conversation with Ren, and it is close to the same thing as if you paid me $1,000 an hour to have a coaching session. Right now, you can do that. It will continue every single day. It will get better. I'm cool with that because that means I can coach 1 billion people. I don't have to be restricted to coaching 10 CEOs, right?
Right.
1 billion people can get coaching from quote unquote me at the same time. Now that may come across as narcissistic, but I think I'm pretty good at what I do. But my pain point is I tried twice to train coaches. They can't do it, right? Because coaches are certification junkies. They all and you never know that you train them in a method. I've gone through that. I've done this twice now in 2 different businesses where I trained groups of coaches and I said, I want you to stick to this methodology. They can't do it. They go in they got their own movie that they're playing, and that's fine.
Right.
That might be a good movie, but don't do that on my time. When a client reads my book and wants good authority implemented in their organization, you got to stick to this script.
Right.
The AI sticks to the script. The AI
So
doesn't
were you
feel bad
previous?
about that.
I'm just curious. I'm just curious. So were you previously operating? Because Ren does not operate this way. Were you previously operating more of as a coaching company, kind of like?
Twice, yes. So
Okay.
I was the CEO of eMyth, which a lot of people might know
Okay. All
is
right.
the
There we
business
go.
coaching. So I was the CEO of a
All right.
traditional
There we
business
go.
coaching company. And then I created my
There we
own
go.
company, and now
You knew
this.
I was smelling something. You knew I was smelling something, right? Okay.
Yeah,
And off the air, I'll tell you a little bit more about why I know that or how I know that. But I want to keep the conversation on you and on Ren.
sure.
And if I go that other direction, we'll lose. So you originally were operating as an eco as a, whatever. So you know how difficult it is to clone yourself, clone the genius, clone the narcissistic, whatever. You know how difficult it is, and how your client success is based on, all right, how good can your coaches get? And then you have
Right.
unrealistic clients. So what you've done is said, hey, I'm going to actually clone myself through AI, which is brilliant.
Cut out
I'm
the
actually
middleman.
wondering if anyone else is doing this actually. Do you? Because I haven't heard of anyone else
Yeah.
actually doing what you're doing.
So there's different approaches. Like, so masterclass, like you can ask, you can get coaching from Mark Cuban on, like,
Right.
how to start a business, or maybe Martha Stewart on how to do whatever. So they have like some I've heard mixed things, but they're basically, or Barack Obama. You can ask Barack if you like Barack Obama. A lot of people maybe don't like Barack Obama, but you can get coaching. You can get advice from famous people. So there's something like that. There are some plays out there. They're not my style, but they might be successful. They tend to be. It's like what I think you're going to see now. There's some of it already. You'll see a lot more of it. Is like, how like everybody created like an e-learning company, like like the Kajabis of the world. Like, hey, you're a
Yeah.
content creator. We'll help you build a course to, like, so you can sell online course versions of you, right? Same principle now. Now there's a bunch. There's probably 1,000 of them where hey, we can clone you and let you coach 1,000 people.
Right.
It's just the
Right.
quality of that is going to be very poor.
So by the way, you're talking to a very early adopter, huge AI user fan. I mean, to me, AI is not a friend, is not to me, AI is a team member and many team members.
Yep.
I mean, and without AI, there's no way I could do all the things that I do in the businesses that I run. So my question for you is this. So, and going back to Ren, if business coaching costs, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month for that one-on-one experience, how is Ren different? Because I know that you're actually doing it at a fraction of the cost. Is that
$7.
yeah? So I guess my question is that, I mean, is that sustainable? Is it just, are you just kind of trying to figure it out? Or is that like,
Yeah.
hey, we can help a lot of people. And Jonathan, this is the way I'm giving back, man. I'm giving back all this knowledge for $7. Like, what's your take on that? Because I love what you're doing. I think that there's a lot of incredible potential for it. And you're right. If you can put that knowledge in there, the knowledge that ChatGPT will give you will be different than the knowledge that you've created it with. So, but I'm curious. I mean, are you trying to get to the masses, or are you still trying to keep that?
So don't know yet. I would say, like, the goal is, we're pretty focused on North America.
Okay.
Because our philosophy and our curriculum tends to be really like North America, Western Europe, Australia, like a lot of the English speaking countries that's the easiest places for us to play. I don't know where it will go beyond that. But we're trying to go as big as we can within that. Our sweet spot tends to be, up to a couple of thousand employees. We do have some Fortune 100 clients,
Okay.
but it's much more complicated because they're just their requirements, and it's a much more difficult.
And you're also
product
trying to target leadership. In other words, you're
Yes.
not saying, okay, it's normal, ordinary business coaching. It's not
Right.
general. It's really focused on leadership.
It's
And
very
I'm
specific.
assuming that Ren asks you a lot of really great questions to give you the solution. I mean, I'm assuming
Yeah, and that's
that's
the
what
thing that's very
happens.
surprising for people is they're like, "Oh, I expected it to be like ChatGPT," which I love, by the way. I love all of these tools, but it doesn't do that. It's not going to give you the answer. It's going to ask you questions. It's going to make
Right.
you think, which is not an easy thing to get an LLM to do because everybody noticed the LMs are very pleased. They like to be people please, right? What an amazing idea, Oscar. Like they're very like, they do a lot of flattery. Ren doesn't do that. Ren's like, interesting. Like, what's another explanation for why that might be happening? Right. So
Right.
that's our brand voice that we're trying to implement. And the answer to your question before is like, in terms of the business model, the cost of the tokens is changing so rapidly. So, right now we're pricing it at $7 a month per user,
Hmm.
but who knows what it's going to need to be.
Right.
Maybe it
Yeah.
can be cheaper. I don't know.
Right. All right. Well, in about 60 seconds, I'm going to give you a chance to like basically, say what you would like the audience to do or to go to or something you want to leave them with,
Oh,
maybe a
sure.
take home sort of action tip. But before you go there, I just kind of want to comment like, when I always have I always have different types of guests, and I'm always trying to sense, okay, what is it that's similar in what you're doing that is similar in any industry. So, for example, somebody can listen to the show and say, look, Jonathan is in a very different industry, but ultimately he's not that different than I am because of this, right? And
Hmm.
that's that teaching moment. And honestly, Jonathan, if I think about it, it's like, this show is called Ask Don't Tell. And you become a better salesperson, a better leader by just like being human and by using those human skills of empathy and listening and understanding and caring. And that's what good salespeople do. They have great human skills, but those human skills go to ask, don't tell. You don't sit there and tell someone what they need to do. You ask them first before you start talking and telling. And so when I listen to you, it's like, man, this is like the same thing. I mean, ultimately, Ren, an AI that you're developing, is going to do the same thing. It's going to try to connect with me in my human skills by asking me enough questions to get enough information before it even suggests what I'm going to do. And just listening to you, Jonathan, like you do the same thing. Like in this show, you have asked so many good questions when you're giving us the examples of how you how
Hmm.
you. And I hope you were listening because Jonathan not only as a CEO, he's an international speaker. He's top 100, I think, leader speakers by magazine. Like this is a rock star, right? And when you listen to the way that he addresses his examples, he was asking questions the whole entire time. And
Hmm.
I think that's the big lesson for today is like it doesn't matter if you're running an AI company or a business coaching company or running a sales company or just out there on the street trying to, make the next commission. If you literally behave behave like the pros that I have on this show, which is asking questions, your income in your life literally not only will change, but the way that your relationships around you will change. So that's
You're
my,
here.
I mean, that's my lesson for today. Jonathan, I take it back to you. What would you like to leave everyone with today?
So would love for folks to come check out Ren, put it through its paces. Tell us what you love. Tell us what you hate. We're early stage. You can go to tryren.com. And I've been doing a lot of speaking on the intersection of AI and leadership. So if you have a conference coming up or a corporate event and you're looking for a speaker, that's one of the things that's the most fun for me to do. Running the software company is the most profitable, but the most fun thing is getting on stage and talking with leaders and having conversations like this in rooms full of actual humans. So you can find me at jonathanraymond.com if you want me to come and speak with your group.
Like a good narcissist, like
Yeah, yeah. I always say to people, I was like, I love talking, but I really love being interrupted. Right? I love when people interrupt. They're like, I disagree, and then I was like, great, tell me why, and then we can have a conversation.
all right. Well, everyone, that's our show for today. Thank you for being. This was a great show. Thank you, Jonathan. Please stay online because I want to talk to you a little bit. But everyone, if you want to connect more, obviously listen to our show, Ask Don't Tell. Connect with Jonathan. You can always connect with me at OscarSubirats.com, closingintelligence.com. This is a great show. I will see you next time on Ask Don't Tell.